get up. I worry a lot that he'll end up in jail. It's so easy to end up in jail here, and for whatever reason. Come on, baby. I wanna go to school. Come on.
Aisha's son Zion is 7 years old.
Open. If he gets into an altercation or he does something that they think is punishable, definitely. I worry a lot. Zion, are you gonna behave today? Yeah. You gonna do all your work?
Okay.
You promise me?
Yeah.
Please, you have to learn.
Zion lives in Broward County, Florida. School has never been easy for him.
A referral is when you get written up and it goes in your permanent record. I think right now Zion has over 40, definitely. In 1 year, he had over 25. And I think that was in first grade. He kept getting suspended. One day here, one day there. I had to leave my work 2-3 times a week.
Zion struggles with ADHD and anxiety, which makes it hard for him to sit through a full school day.
What would happen when you got in trouble?
It'll be bad, and it'll be hard to calm me down.
How did that make you feel?
Frustrated and bad.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his file right now. There's so many. I mean, I'm going through this and I just don't even know where to start because there's just so many. Behavioral concerns may result in exclusion from participation in activities, unruly play. This one was the big one, battery on a district employee. He just had a major anxiety attack. He threw his desk. He threw everything he can find, books, whatever. He was uncontrollable. He was crying and crying. The teacher went to try to hold him down, and she got kicked. They called me. They said, the police is here. You need to come right away. Again. The police officer said, look, I don't know if the teacher wants to press charges. I mean, she could because she's on her right to press charges. I felt like, okay, what are they gonna do? Is he gonna go to jail? Is he gonna, go to juvenile? Are they gonna handcuff him? I mean, he's 7, he's a baby, he's my baby.
At 7 years old, Zion could legally be arrested for battery in Florida. It's one of 33 states where there is no minimum age to charge a child with a crime. The U.S. incarcerates more children than any other developed country, 54,000 on any given night. Americans pay about $8 billion a year to incarcerate kids, but that's only part of the cost.
You can do what we've asked you to, or you can suffer the consequences.
In the last year, we've seen small glimpses of what some call the criminalization of childhood, the handcuffing of a 3rd grader in a Kentucky classroom, the suicide of Khalif Browder, who was featured in The New Yorker. At 16, he was sent to jail for 3 years without ever being convicted of a crime. The violent confrontation between police and teenagers at a neighborhood pool party in Texas. To many Americans, it's shocking, but it's a system we created, and it's destroying lives.
We can really mess a kid up. We can create a problem that did not exist, and then we turn them loose. We've, in essence, created a criminal.
The vast majority of kids in juvenile jail don't commit a violent crime. In fact, many are locked up for things that aren't even crimes for adults. Skipping school, running away from home, or missing curfew. Even those accused of more serious crimes are still children.
I could never imagine my life if I haven't been incarcerated as a kid.
Savannah first went to juvenile prison in Ohio when she was 14.
Yeah, I was young. I was young in there. And I really grew up in there.
This is her in 2009.
I definitely feel sad about missing out on like school games, stuff like that. You know, being able to create memories for like my family. Like my mom tell me sometimes like I robbed her the chance of raising me.
Ohio's juvenile prisons, run by the Department of Youth Services, were some of the bleakest places to be a kid locked up in America.
I saw like a lot of girls cut in and trying to commit suicide, and very, very depressed girls and stuff like that in there. That was something I had never, experienced before.
Savannah's experience can be traced to what was happening in the country when she was just an infant.
In California, 3 children, all under the age of 10, were arrested this week after the near-fatal beating of an infant.
In Chicago, a 10 and 11-year-old drop a 5-year-old from a high-rise to his death. Another 14-year-old arrested for gang rape.
In the mid-90s, America became terrified of a new brand of child criminal.
Super predators come in every race, creed, and zip code. They have literally no concept of the future, either their own or anyone else's.
Today, they're just children, but will they be predators tomorrow?
The country went into a panic, and lawmakers responded with what seemed like a simple solution: lock them up.
There are no violent offenses that are juvenile. You rape somebody, you're an adult. You shoot somebody, you're an adult.
I'm directing the FBI and other investigative agencies to target gangs that involve juveniles in violent crime, and to seek authority to prosecute as adults teenagers who maim and kill like adults.
The number of kids locked up in America peaked in the year 2000, hitting 109,000 kids.
We can expect a crime wave of juvenile violence over the next 10 years.
But the predictions were wrong. There were no super predators. In fact, juvenile violent crime rates dropped, and the number of kids in juvenile facilities went down too. Still, the U.S. incarcerates children at a higher rate than anyone else. Those kids are usually Black or brown. Most struggle with mental illness.
It tickles anyways.
This weighs on Zion's mom, Aisha.
That fear is still in me, that he'll, be arrested, that he won't finish school.
Look at this. Nothing.
When you're a mom, you're so ambitious towards your kids. You want them to be better than you were. That's all I ask. But I'm scared.
Savannah is 22 years old. She lives in Columbus, Ohio.
I started to get in trouble around the age of 12.
Sheesh.
I really didn't like being at home that much. I had a lot of responsibilities. My mom worked a lot. She was a single mom. So it was better to be worried about myself and be on my own.
At 14, Savannah was locked up in one of Ohio's juvenile prisons, run by the Department of Youth Services, or DYS.
But I never fought as much till I got to DYS. I never really had conflicts with other people in school that much. I got into fights here and there, but not as much. Sometimes, I get anxiety, and that would be a way of releasing it. I would just throw stuff or yell or do something, and that would carry on to something else and something else, and then lead to a fight.
When Savannah fought, she says she was placed in solitary confinement, 23 hours straight in a cell. If she followed the rules, Savannah could earn time outside. Some consider solitary confinement torture. The state called it a special management plan meant to make her a better inmate. Instead of helping, Savannah says it made her worse.
And sometimes I would work the plan, and then maybe something might upset me or something, and I'll just ruin the whole thing. The isolation kind of sometimes made me feel crazy. To be in a cell for 23 hours is definitely, they be like, count bricks. It's not really too much you can do. I remember one time somebody slugged me a marker. I drew on every inch of my wall, every inch of my wall was covered with something. It kind of tests your mental state at sometimes. Like you might find yourself talking to yourself or something. Just trying to pass time or anything. You know, find anything to do in there.
When a lot of people speak about the projects, they think of like it's a place you won't want to be. That's how they make it seem like something wrong with it. Ain't nothing wrong with the project though. I love the projects. I feel like it made me who I am. Y'all want me to show y'all where my mama stay at? Yeah, keep straight.
Alan grew up in Cleveland. He spent more than 2 years in Ohio juvenile prisons.
I used to stay at this house right here. That used to be my window right there. I used to jump out that window when I'm on punishment. She don't let me out the house. I hang drop and run over there, run through there. I don't know.
Alan was also held in solitary confinement when he went to kid prison at age 15.
I used to pace a lot. Pace back and forth, looking out the outside window, just looking back and forth, pacing.
When he was incarcerated, Alan was diagnosed with a mood disorder and severe ADHD. He struggled to control his behavior.
Once a prisoner gets into solitary confinement, usually because of impulsive, emotionally volatile kind of behavior, once they get in, they get worse, and then they never get out. And that's what happens to a lot of these kids.
Dr. Stuart Gratian has studied the impact of solitary confinement on inmates for 3 decades.
Instead of understanding what was going on with these kids, they were punished. They were put in solitary confinement. And from everything we know from work with adults and with juveniles, putting these people in solitary confinement is going to make them worse.
Gratian examined files of several kids held in solitary confinement in Ohio juvenile prisons. He found all had mental health issues.
But if you're caught, you're arrested.
The juvenile justice system was created more than 100 years ago with the idea that kids aren't fully developed and they have the potential to change if they're given the opportunity.
I don't believe you're really a bad boy, and I'm not going to send you away this time.
The purpose of the adult system was to punish the offender. In juvenile, the objective in the statute is to rehabilitate the child or to turn the child around. And I'll be the first to tell you, it's a lot easier to punish a person than to try and turn a child around.
Just like in other parts of the country, there was more punishment than rehabilitation in Ohio.
Sadly, what develops in places like this is a very kind of cynical, kind of cruel attitude towards the kids.
In 2011, the year Alan got arrested, kids in Ohio juvenile prisons spent 229,000 hours in isolation. That's an average of 306 hours per kid that year. The more time Alan spent inside, the worse his behavior got.
It just made me more aggressive. It made me more on the edge. I was always mad, like upset, like frustrated. I feel like the whole program and all that only made us worse. That's all it did, it only made us worse.
Alan says he never took psychotropic drugs until he was on trial in juvenile jail.
And I used to just be up all the time, all night, couldn't sleep thinking. That's when they first introduced me to Seroquel. They said this will help you sleep.
Seroquel is a powerful antipsychotic drug. When Alan was sent to kid prison, the state continued to prescribe it, sometimes at the maximum dose.
I used to be like stuck, for real. I'd take my Seroquel and just be like stuck. Just staring out of space or something. You really can't even move.
Documents reveal that on one of the days that Alan was incarcerated, 92% of the kids locked up with him were on psychotropic drugs. The medication and solitary confinement were a dangerous combination.
If you do this to an adolescent for a long period of time, there's significant evidence here. You're altering brain function and brain development.
We engage in practices in prisons and jails that actually make people far more dangerous.
U.S. Senator Cory Booker has introduced legislation that would ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles.
We routinely in this country put children
in solitary confinement, which has a traumatizing impact on that child's emotional and mental health. In fact, 60% of the kids that are committing suicide in prisons are ones that have been put into solitary confinement. Other countries consider the practice torture, but we do it with regularity.
In just 1 year, Alan spent 313 days in solitary confinement.
You know, and one of the really sad things about it is that if you looked at those charts, a lot of those kids entered the system hopeful that the system could help them. They've been given a tremendous burden and impairment, and I think it's exceedingly difficult to overcome that. You know, the generation of kids who went through those kind of systems, you know, it's tragic. You know, all we can do is just pray for them.
I'm going to a new school when I get home. I'm going to be entering the 10th grade, probably stay at that school, graduate from that school if everything goes okay. I've already got my mindset is what do I want to do? I want to go farther in life. I had plans before. Those plans didn't work out, and it's really like I haven't planned nothing else. It's not really about dreaming no more.
Ow.
When he was about 3.5, they said that he was behind in his speech.
I'm a soccer genius.
At first, he couldn't articulate very well. He felt very anxious about learning. He just couldn't stay still.
Coco.
Aisha says that by age 5, Zion had been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and depression.
We entered him into therapy. And at first, it was kind of helping him with the coping skills, but it just stopped. It wasn't helping him anymore. Here's your other medication.
So, Aisha says, Zion started taking medicine.
First we had Risperdal. Risperdal seemed to work a little, but then he gained 30 pounds. They gave him Adderall. He became a monster with Adderall. He was on Focalin, and it was so hard because when you're giving him Focalin, you know you're giving him cocaine. And he was allergic to that. He ended up in the hospital, and then he was fine, but couldn't give it to him. How can you give a pill to a 6-year-old? What happens when he's 20, 25?
Students with disabilities represent 1/4 of all police referrals at school. 70% of kids in the juvenile justice system struggle with mental health issues.
I think the thing that is startling is the incidence rate of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
Dr. John Hunter is a medical psychologist who works with kids in a juvenile jail in New Orleans.
I cannot tell you how many kids that I have treated here who have bullets in their body. They've had their best friend die in their arms. They've seen their fathers murdered. So the incidence level of violence very, very high. And those problems actually contributed to their getting in trouble and ending up in the juvenile justice system.
I gotta go get it. I gotta go get it. Woo! I gotta go get it.
Brian grew up in Ohio.
I had no business. I did it.
My family was a family of 8. No father there. My mom, just one person taking care of 8 kids. Of course, people can know how rough that can be.
Most of the kids in the juvenile system have a history of trauma.
At 9 years old, this man got killed, shot in front of me by a Shell's gas station. Left him in the bushes. Oh yeah, it traumatized me for real. Made me panic a lot. How you doing?
Brian was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder as a boy.
I was diagnosed with ADHD first. I was young.
Brian says he joined a gang when he was 9.
I found family and support system that showed me a lot of love. But they have you do all these things and you get locked up for them.
Brian first went to kid jail when he was 12 and spent years in and out of facilities. He says he spent time in solitary confinement.
I'm not a jail person. I don't like jail. Trying to maintain you in this cell 23 hours, you gonna go crazy. I believe if you anybody, you gonna go crazy. And you start hearing things. Ain't nobody in your room talking to you. I was hallucinating a lot. I was tripping hard. I'm sorry.
Brian says he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. When he was inside, he said he was given powerful psychotropic drugs daily.
I didn't have no help. It was hard for me to receive treatment after being incarcerated. Because nobody wanted to help me.
These are kids that typically are not welcome in the traditional mental health system because of their behavior problems. So it's very, very hard for them to get access once they've been identified as a juvenile justice involved youth. A lot of psychiatric facilities will not accept them because of their concern about how disruptive their behavior may be and their effect on their staff and other kids.
Which the state alleges are sufficient to establish.
Linda Tedosio is a juvenile judge in Akron, Ohio, who's helped rethink how courts treat mentally ill kids.
I think that a lot of folks still believe that if you lock up a youth for a while, regardless of his illness, that he will learn that when he is released, he shouldn't act that way again. And, you know, in my mind, I always like to liken it to, you know, if you have a kid who has an epileptic seizure, are you really going to lock him up for a few days to teach him not to have another seizure? If we don't treat the underlying cause, locking them up or punishing them is not going to solve the issue.
Mike left his treatment team notes for me. I'm concerned with how much she's working, a little bit.
This group of counselors develops treatment plans for kids with mental health issues who face low-level charges. Kids get help and stay out of juvenile jail.
If you do the programming in the community and you're actually working with them where they live, the chances of them being more successful in the long run are much higher because they're connected with those services right there in their community.
When kids successfully complete the program, their charges are dropped.
Even if a mentally ill child does something that is against the law, it's not enough just to impose punishment. We really have to couple that with appropriate treatment to give them the best opportunity to move on and have a successful life.
Chris came a long way from me having to go get him out of bed every morning. He's come a long way, so.
All right, what is next?
Switch! Okay.
Yeah, now you're good. You gonna let him talk about me, cousin?
Brian has stayed out of jail for 3 years. Since coming home, he's reunited with his dad and twin brother.
Triplets.
All 3 men have been locked up.
See, and I wasn't around. I didn't know a lot of things that they was doing then, you know, growing up. And I know the things that I done, and then them being my boys, and I'm just like, you know, I hear some things here and there, and I'm like, what? He did what?
A lot of that had to do with me and bro lockup because been on probation at a young age, you know. Been on probation all of our life.
Told you. I got some good boys. They ain't out here robbing, stealing, none of that, you know. And thank you. I think, you know, and I'm just happy about that because, like I said, it's just so crazy out here, man.
I wish I had my own TV, my own room, my own bed, my own clothes. They took away my life because I had no childhood. Things I wanted to do, I couldn't do because I was steady getting locked up.
Get in the car. Seatbelts. So Z, you're gonna be a good boy? Huh? You know, you have to try your best, you know that, right?
In 2011, the year Zion started preschool, his school district arrested more students than any other in the state of Florida.
You feel discriminated. He's Latino and he's Black too. So to me, he's perfect mix. But, you know, you feel discriminated. I might not have a lot of money, but I'm trying to raise the kid the best I can. And I don't want him to be singled out. I don't want him to be another statistic. It's a beautiful day, right, Zion?
In Florida, 53% of the kids arrested in school are Black, even though they are just 21% of the youth population.
I asked to come down here to juvenile delinquency because I knew that I'd be working with African American males predominantly. Is a warrant been read to the child?
Elijah Williams is a juvenile judge in Broward County, Florida. His courtroom is a few miles away from Zion's neighborhood.
When I look in that box and I see dozens of them lined up, I see myself because I came from their background. The criminal justice system, our legal system, was designed by people who are white, wealthy, and who are highly educated. And so my challenge every day as a judge is to make this system work for people who are of color, who are not as educated and not as wealthy. And that's what I do every day when I come to work.
Between January 2013 and June 2015, 97% of the kids arrested in New Orleans were Black. They make up about 72% of the minors in the city.
The amount of people we have currently incarcerated, the amount of kids we have currently out of school, a lot of that comes from the lack of opportunities provided to those students and the lack of services also. I'd say probably opportunities and services. Those two things together make a very bad cocktail.
Chazray Griffin is an education advocate for the Southern Poverty Law Center. He spends a lot of his time reading school discipline records.
This is all of his education documents. So right now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to organize everything because I just got these like a week ago.
Buried in Griffin's paperwork is the file of an 8th grader arrested for battery. He threw Skittles at another boy and spent 6 nights in juvenile jail. A 7th grade special needs student who spent a night in jail for cursing in a school parking lot. A 10-year-old autistic girl who was dragged and pinned to the ground by school police. All of these kids are Black.
You know, there's this idea in a lot of the community that's like, well, these kids are just bad, right? People do just label them as bad kids and do just label them as problem children and do just want to put them in silos where all the bad kids can be. So they just kind of get pushed to the side as like, we'll deal with you the easiest way we possibly can.
Sometimes that means an arrest. Nationally, Black students account for almost 1/3 of all school arrests, even though they only make up 16% of the school population.
When it comes to Black students, the reaction is often that those students should know better, that they're older than they appear, that we don't view Black students as children. We view them as little adults. And the sort of the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of innocence, childlike innocence, is not afforded to Black students.
But I got a drink, a little Minute Maid juices. Psych. I was in 6th grade, and this girl kept messing with me. We started fighting, and that's when I went to jail.
Nicole lives in Jefferson Parish, the county next to New Orleans. Nicole says she was 11 when she went to jail for fighting at school.
To me, it's just scary. I don't like to be isolated. When I get isolated, my nerves get bad. I don't know, they really made me feel like I was a bad person, like this is where they really put bad people at. They try to treat me like a criminal for real.
Drove me nuts because I didn't know why.
They kept telling me it was for disciplinary issues at school, and I was like, well, I thought they handled this at school.
In fact, the Southern Poverty Law Center found that in 2011, Jefferson Parish Public Schools arrested more students than any other school district in Louisiana. In 2014, they found that Black kids made up 80% of the school arrests, even though they're only 41% of the school population here.
What seems like a small issue of arresting a kid for a minor thing, that kid has to face all these extra barriers in order to graduate from high school, go to college, get a job.
Sarah Godcho is an attorney with the Southern Poverty Law Center. In 2012, they filed a complaint with the Department of Education over racial disparities in school arrests here.
I think putting these barriers for kids, especially minority kids, is a huge setback for our country because we're stacking the cards against all children from being able to succeed and become, successful members of our society.
Harsh disciplinary policies in schools became popular in the late 90s. After the mass shooting at Columbine High School in 1999, the number of police officers in schools increased. The number of school-related arrests did too. But the kids getting arrested were not necessarily dangerous. Black kids and those with disabilities are arrested at school at a higher rate than their classmates.
Whereas with our white students, we find that the response is, let's find out what supports you need. A Black student who is allegedly acting out in class, that behavior is immediately criminalized.
It's unbelievable when it goes on every day. They having them arrested for petty little stuff, petty little things that they can handle themselves.
Nicole's twin brother Dion was also arrested in school. Both are special needs students. Dion's family says he first got locked up long-term when he was 13. For almost 3 years, he bounced between group homes and juvenile facilities.
Oh, they were horrible. Worst time of my life. I wish I could go back on that just to fix that time. Wish I had a time machine right now. I could just press rewind.
When we spoke with Dion in April, he'd just been released from a juvenile prison outside New Orleans.
So how does it feel to be out now after being there for so
Oh,
long?
man. Feels good. Real good.
What are your plans for now for the future?
Oh, plans for the future? I got so many plans. I'm trying to become the next upcoming rapper. And I'm trying to get a job, go back to school, basically what a young teenager trying to do. By the grace of God, he helping me and just helping me do the right thing. I'm just trying to do the right thing because I got another chance to do the right thing. Many people don't get other chances.
About 2 months after we interviewed Dion, he'd gotten locked up again.
All right, is there anything else you want to say before I pack up and get out of here?
Just thank you for spending the time with us. That's it.
The Southern Poverty Law Center found that since 2012, the racial disparities in school arrests have actually gotten worse. In April, they asked the Department of Justice to investigate. Jefferson Parish Public Schools declined an interview. They provided a statement saying that they are aware and concerned by the allegations and will work with the agencies involved to resolve any issues.
It's too late. Help these children while they have a chance, while they're still young, and there is a chance for them. Because the older they get, the worse it's going to get. It starts out small, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the long-term effect is the children give up. My son has totally given up. He's given up on school. He's given up on himself. It's like nothing I do matters. So I may as well do whatever they say that I'm doing and be what they say I'm gonna be. Which is sad. It's really, really sad.
They're not up yet? Well, why don't we go ahead, let's just turn on their lights just to get them. Because if we don't, they'll never get up.
This is the Youth Study Center, the juvenile jail in New Orleans. The kids here haven't been found guilty. They're all locked up awaiting trial on charges ranging from school fights to robbery and rape.
I've been here since January. So that's like 5-6 months been here.
What do you miss about home?
The cooking, having little talks, We used to play cards for candy. I miss that. Lord, like, you never knew how important it was to spend time with your family, and you'd be like, I really don't see my mom every day, I can't see my family every day, so.
On the day we visited the jail in May, every kid here was Black.
They're all African-American young black kids. Today my population is 100%. Yesterday my population was 100%. My population's been 100% most of the time that I've been here.
Glenn Holt has run this jail for 5 years.
We have an anomaly in Orleans Parish in that white kids don't go to detention. Apparently they don't commit car burglaries. Apparently they don't get in school fights and commit assaults. Apparently they're not selling drugs. Because if they are, they're not winding up in detention.
The disparity here in New Orleans is especially stark, but not unusual. Nationally, Black kids are more than twice as likely to be arrested as white kids. They're also more likely to be charged as adults. That's what happened to Timothy. Even though he's 16, Timothy faces charges in adult court.
In the adult court, kids face something that they don't face in juvenile court, which is mandatory minimums. Certain offenses carry mandatory minimum prison terms. So you're looking at 10 years. Now, when you're 15 years old and you're looking at a 10-year sentence, that's almost as long as you've been alive. There's no consideration for that sort of proportionality when a child is in adult court.
In Louisiana, 17-year-olds go straight to adult court. They are not charged as juveniles. It's one of 11 states where kids as young as 16 or 17 are automatically charged as adults. But anywhere in the U.S., kids can be charged as adults if a judge or prosecutor makes that call. They're much more likely to do so with minorities.
Prosecutors sometimes want to bring adult charges to appear tough on crime. They think that they're going to teach the kid a lesson. They think that if you're 17, how different is that from being 18? The problem is that all the research shows that trying kids in adult court actually leads to more recidivism, and that means more crime, more repeat offenders, more serious offenses.
An estimated 5,400 kids sleep in adult jails and prisons on any given night in America. While he could face a decade or more in adult prison if found guilty, Timothy is lucky to be here now. He'd been held in Orleans Parish Prison, one of the most violent jails in America.
It's really, nasty. It's dirty. It's a bad place.
This video was shot by inmates there in 2009.
Anything could happen to you over there, It's not even safe, It's not a safe environment.
Glenn Holt helped lead the effort to bring kids charged as adults to this facility.
Well, I think what's different about kids is there's a willingness to learn. As challenging as they can be on certain days, it's really interesting to watch them grow, and mature. And in some cases, kind of change right before you. I saw some tape the other day I was looking at, and I saw you help out staff. That was pretty amazing.
The youth study centers seem to be doing what juvenile jails are supposed to do, help kids.
All right, y'all ready to get started? Yes. All right, so we got 5 words we're going to talk about today for the beginning.
Leroy Crawford is an assistant superintendent here. He runs a group session called Inside Out.
3rd word,
family.
4th word,
money.
And the last word,
disrespect.
So Inside Out was about giving them the opportunity to express themselves without judging them. Travell, you speak very well. You're very articulate. So somehow you got to get the people out there to say, I changed. Letting them see that who they are is better than what they've done or what they've been accused of. We want some success stories at whatever level you are. Keep your paperwork with you and I'm gonna let Tim get the rest. You can pass on.
I just feel like I have a purpose to be here. I feel like I'm here to do something good, you know, something positive. Even though I'm in here, I can make a change in here, you know?
This juvenile jail may be one of the more progressive in the country, but it wasn't built out of goodwill. It took years of litigation over unconstitutional conditions before the city settled and agreed to fix it. It took similar lawsuits to start reforming Ohio's juvenile justice system. Around the time Savannah was held there, a court-appointed monitoring team visited.
What do you think of this place?
I think they try to make it a good place.
And do they?
They make the difference, but not a positive difference.
The investigators were looking into complaints of abuse by staff and the overuse of solitary confinement.
Well, anything else you guys want to tell me? I'm going to follow through on what you've said.
Kim Tandy, a Cincinnati-based attorney, spent more than a decade suing the state of Ohio over conditions.
We got statements, written statements from about a dozen kids who were there long-term.
One of them was Alan.
He was a bit of a fighter, and he was going to tell us what was going on.
Me and Kim started talking, and we started talking more and more. They started coming more often, and I started calling them.
He would call us about other kids. He was a little bit of a protector for other kids.
Alan's testimony helped Kim Tandy build a case against Ohio's Department of Youth Services. She sued the state, and it ultimately settled. Since 2008, the number of kids locked up in Ohio has dropped by almost 70%. 5 juvenile facilities have closed, and the state has significantly reduced the use of solitary confinement. Ohio's Department of Youth Services declined an interview. They said in a statement that they are proud of the reforms that they have made. In New Orleans, a similar reform started 5 years ago. Now kids held here are not allowed to spend more than 8 hours in their cells during the day.
So this is a typical room, and we have no solitary confinement. The worst a child can get is to spend 4 to 7 hours in this room, and then they're out.
But only 8 states have passed laws that prohibit or limit the use of solitary confinement for kids. Juvenile justice systems in 29 states have been investigated or sued over conditions since 2000. There has been movement to improve the lives of incarcerated children, but it's often been a long battle.
Like I said, you get court tomorrow. We have the capability of creating more harm than good and really messing a kid up if we don't do it right. And there are some places in the United States that are messing kids up.
Tight end or a tackle?
These are kids, and these kids are still growing, these kids are still maturing. We have to hold them accountable, but at the same time, they're not a life wasted, and they're not a life that doesn't deserve a chance to grow and mature into a healthy adult.
I saw the ugly, painful side of what this broken system does to so many young people in our country. We put them on a worse track, whether it's putting them in solitary confinement, traumatizing them, or putting them on the streets, now not able to get a job, to get a student loan, to get a business license, to provide for themselves. That road becomes very slippery.
About 75% of the kids who spend time in juvenile jail will face new charges 2 to 3 years after their release.
Once you get into trouble, it's like you could never escape it again. It's almost like a curse.
It didn't take me as a kid at 14, it didn't make me a better kid. No, it definitely did not. I committed a worse crime when I came home.
The juvenile justice system is supposed to rehabilitate kids so that they don't get locked up again. But it failed to do that for Savannah and Alan. Both went to adult jail shortly after leaving Ohio's kid prisons.
We're producing a population of kids who rotate over and over into our juvenile facilities and then into our adult jails.
And so this just becomes our cycle, all the while consuming taxpayer dollars, eating away at our public treasury, because it costs so much to imprison somebody, to arrest them, to try them. And so we're just draining that.
The Justice Policy Institute estimates that the real price of locking kids up, including lost future earnings and tax revenue, could be as high as $21 billion.
Recidivism rates in this country are outrageous. That you have, upwards of 3/4 of the people you're releasing coming back. That doesn't make any sense. Smart investments early in the process can help people stay out of prison, save taxpayer money, elevate human achievement, and that's what we should be trying to do.
This was my first tattoos, loyalty and respect. That always meant a lot. And I got civil savage on my neck. It's kind of like an oxymoron, civil and savage all at the same time,
Bye.
Before Savannah left Ohio's juvenile justice system, she was trying to make a plan for herself. When she was 19, Savannah requested an early release so she could participate in a program that would help her attend college when she got out.
In order for me to participate, I will need to have a planned release date prior to December 31st, 2012. I really want to take advantage of this program, so I hope you will make my request into consideration. I'm remorseful for the things I've done to my community, and I would like to be renowned for positive contributions to the community. I respectfully request that this court grant me a judicial release. That was it.
What happened?
They denied my release. I was mad, but at the same time, I never really seen it getting accepted in the first place. So it wasn't like I got more time or nothing like that. I wasn't really banking on an early release.
Savannah was released almost 2 years after writing the letter. A few months after being released from kid prison, Savannah says she missed curfew and was arrested on a parole violation. Even though she was originally locked up for juvenile charges, Savannah was now an adult and was sent to the county jail. Savannah is not unique.
If you take a child and you incarcerate that child for a period of time, let's say 6 months to a year, you might provide them with great treatment in that facility. You might do a lot of really positive things for that youth, hopefully while they're incarcerated. If they come back to the community and they have the same friends, the family's made no changes, they go back to the same school, the same peers, what do you really think the chances are that they're going to maintain those gains that they made while they were incarcerated?
You don't have that little nervous feeling because you heard so many stories when you was locked down. Then you back out here where this really popping at. Once you get a system, once you get put in the system, like you stuck. I was telling y'all earlier, it's like you're stuck.
I think if Alan wants to do it, he could do anything. He has great potential that he hasn't begun to realize yet. And so I hope he can put a support system around himself to go back to school, to be gainfully employed. But like many of these kids coming out, he needs a lot of help to do that.
When Kim Tandy talks about a support system, she's talking about things most young people take for granted: a home, a doctor, a parent.
Being locked up showed me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things too. When I got out, it was a week later. I did just 2 years, 14 to 16. A week later, I get locked back up. Why? Because this is all I know. So when I get out, what I do, resort back to the same things that I knew best.
Brian has been able to stay out of jail for the last 3 years, but he struggled with homelessness.
How can I help you?
How you doing? Back calling to see if y'all have any available beds open.
When we first met Brian, he and his father were getting along, but a few days after we visited, they argued and he wound up on the street.
All right, bye-bye. Just hearing that lady say that, like, there's no more openings for the shelter I was trying to go to, just bummed me out. It just, you know what I'm saying, bummed me out.
My experience, almost 100% of the kids in juvenile justice settings come from impoverished and not well-functioning homes. Our society has not created an umbrella of services that really addresses those problems. But if you don't address those problems and they just continue and worsen, then it's very likely that the kid's going to end up in trouble.
What's your plan right now?
You see where I'm at? You see, my plan is, I'm sitting down. When I'm done interviewing, y'all done interviewing me, this where I be at, right here. I ain't going nowhere.
We're a little early, my love.
You're early. I like to be early.
You like to be early? Yeah.
Aisha feared her son Zion would be charged with battery after kicking his teacher, but there were no charges. Instead, he was moved to a new school.
There's something in this pocket.
When you walk in the school, you get searched. You can't bring book bags. You have to take your shoes off. They pat you.
Right.
At first, I was very skeptical of it until I saw how happy he became. The couple of days that he was there, you know, they talked to him, they understood him. It seemed like they could understand him, that they've had kids like him.
Good morning.
Morning.
You too. Walk, 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 walk. Thank you. Good morning.
Pine Ridge is the best kept secret in Broward County. What's different about it is that we've given kids an alternative to a traditional classroom setting. We've given them a second chance. For whatever reason, whether it's behavior, whether they've made a mistake, whatever the situation is, they could come here and we're not accusing them of anything. We're not holding that over their head.
Good morning. Is your first day? Okay, right through there.
Belinda Hope is the principal of Pine Ridge School in Broward County, Florida, which houses the Promise program.
A couple years ago, Broward County had the highest number of school arrests in Florida. We realized something had to be done because students were being arrested for things like theft. A cell phone, I can return the cell phone and give you strategies instead of messing up your whole life. So that's how the Promise program was kind of born, from that concept.
Instead of being arrested for minor offenses, students are given the choice to participate in the program and their record stays clean.
We want to make sure that he's on track and he's receiving whatever support systems that we can provide to avoid any future infractions.
My name is Elijah Williams. I am a circuit court judge here in Broward County.
Judge Elijah Williams helped develop the program.
There was a moment in which it hit me that I was actually locking up more kids than any other judge in the state of Florida. And then I began to find out about how many kids were trapped where they can't get any future prospects in terms of education and jobs. So at that point, I recognized I needed to find a new direction, because essentially the more I locked up, the more lives I was destroying. So I'm going to encourage you to ensure that he has a future without the mark of an arrest on his record to participate in this program. You have to make a distinction between those kids that scare you and those kids that make you angry. If you're the child who likes to write on our bathroom walls, if you're the type of child who likes to smoke marijuana, those are things that make all of us angry. But those are not things that scare us. So those particular individuals should be not arrested, placed into a program, and dealt with from a treatment standpoint.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes.
Yeah.
The counseling is kind of the foundation of it, because what we found are so many other things that are going on. A lot of times these kids are crying out for help and don't know how.
You guys know the new people. My name is Mrs. Colo, and I'm going to be your teacher for the duration that you're in Promise.
They have a full class schedule where they're given different strategies just to help them make better decisions and to help them understand how this could affect the rest of their life.
Do you do drugs normally? So what made you do it? Make me understand what you were thinking. You can't. So it was a mistake.
Students can come to the Promise program for things like fighting, theft, and drug use at school. Most kids are here a few days before going back to their regular classrooms.
Kids make mistakes, and that's what it means, like, to be a kid. We make mistakes, and I don't think if we make like one mistake one day, I don't think it should ruin your entire future.
Since the Promise program started in 2013, the number of school arrests in Broward County has dropped by 51%.
Who can tell me? What do we start off with? Yes, sir?
Name and date.
Name and date. Beautiful.
They were so lovable at the Promise program.
Zion?
He goes to baseball.
He's gonna go to baseball.
He felt understood.
After spending a few days in the program, school administrators decided to keep Zion long term to help with his behavior issues.
What type of words? Words that we...
Zion's my little buddy. Zion comes in with the mind frame. I'm really gonna try my best to be good today. I'm really gonna do everything that I can. But something inside of me is telling me, no, don't do it. No, be bad, be aggressive, hit people. I don't want you to hurt yourself. See, I don't like when you talk like that. Stop.
What I done first?
Even though Zion had a rough day, his teacher managed the situation without calling the police. A reminder that often solving problems doesn't require law enforcement.
I know my son better than anybody. I see it.
You wanna give me a hug? That's not you,
Some of your senators are in this school. The next judge could be in this school. You don't know what these students can become, and we've already labeled them because they've decided maybe that these kids aren't worth it. They are. You should see them. They're beautiful. They have beautiful hearts.
I oftentimes hear people say that our children are our future. I don't like that statement. I think we adults are the future. I think that unless we create the proper environment, unless we create the proper future for our children, there won't be our future.
Brian reconciled with his dad but remains homeless. He's gone back to school to get his GED.
I'm gonna break the cycle, and I'm gonna get up on my feet, and I'm gonna have better things than my parents. I'm gonna break it. I'm gonna break the chain because I feel like I need to.
Nothing will change unless we do. And if we can't raise the conscience of our country, the moral imagination that we're better than this, and get more people to get engaged, because this is not one of the big issues. You're not going to see this leading the headlines on the evening news, or you poll people in this next presidential election, will this be one of the big, it won't be. But this is one of these issues that we as a country have to say, this is not us.
Savannah went to county jail on a parole violation after leaving juvenile prison.
You know you're not supposed to be doing that.
Since being released from jail, she's picked up a new charge.
They read my whole juvenile record in there. They started, from 2005. So I was like, I didn't even know that they would really do something like that.
She's facing a harsher sentence because of her juvenile record.
Quite frankly, if locking a child up taught them a lesson so they'd never commit a crime, we would be the safest country in the world because we lock up so many children. But clearly, experience shows that doesn't work. It's not teaching them a lesson. It's not getting them on the right path.
A few months after our interview, we visited Alan again. Kim Tandy had offered him the chance to join a reentry program in Cincinnati, 4 hours away from home.
So, like, I talked to her today, and we talk about maybe going to mall or something. Go out there, see what it's like, see what I can make happen.
Alan still hasn't gone.
I've known so many of these young kids who have beauty and strength and potential that we're wasting and squandering. I don't want to be in the country that leads the globe, the planet Earth, in incarceration.
Zion went through a series of brain scans this summer. He got a new diagnosis: intermittent seizures.
What it is basically he gets so overwhelmed that it needs to come out. Kind of like Tourette syndrome, that they build up and it has to come up and they feel much better afterwards.
Zion is on new medication and is doing better. He started at the same school in August.
I want him to be able to do whatever he wants. Whatever he wants, whatever he likes, he should be able to. Anything that he did in elementary school, I don't think it should matter. And he's really, really trying really hard.
God, help me. Let me calm down. Please don't let nobody distract me. In Jesus' name, amen.
You know I'm proud of you, right?